What is up, everybody? This is the Farm Talk podcast brought to you by yours truly, Kevin Borba and Jordan Watkins, former Stanford defensive lineman. Jordan, Stanford's on a 2-game winning streak. We get to talk about some Stanford wins, some preview some Stanford football, and then we're going to look around the Pac-12 and kind of pick some winners and talk about some other intriguing games as Pac-12 play has really become an all-out brawl to see who could claim 2 spots with about 6 teams vying for those 2 spots. So without further ado, Jordan, are you ready to talk some Stanford wins?
I'm always. I mean, you got me ready to get up on. I don't know what I have around here. I guess I can get on my desk and start a Sea House chant myself. Of course, I'm ready to talk Stanford wins.
I love that. It had actually been it had been 4 weeks since we were able to talk a Stanford win, and that win was against Colgate. But now they're coming off a win against their rival Notre Dame in South Bend, which was a huge win. And they did what we said they had to do, which was contain the run. And then this past week, they beat Arizona State in what was probably one of the ugliest wins I've ever seen. But I feel like if you could play a really bad game in terms of offense, because the defense showed up, if you could play a really bad game and still win, something's going right for you. Would you agree?
Well, see, I once lost a game 10-5. So that for me personally is still the ugliest one I've ever seen.
How many innings did you guys go?
I wish. But no, it was my 5th year. So that was 2016. We played Colorado, and I think that was the year Colorado went on to the Pac-12 championship, I think, because Washington went to the playoff. But at home, we lost to Washington 10-5. We lost to Colorado 10-5. But I'll say this, for Stanford at this point, we have to be honest about it. It doesn't matter how they win. The fact of the matter is that they won. Because I think that, maybe in some of the yesteryears, you can look at, all right, yeah, they didn't do this that well, which means that I'm worried about this matchup going forward. But no, we have to be honest about the current state of the program and, whether again, wins and losses, some of the injuries that they have now, any win that they can take is a good win. And, it's like you said, first off, you brought a trophy back in the win in Notre Dame, the Legends Trophy, I think is what it is.
Yeah. I like how nobody knows what it's called.
I mean, honestly, I never knew there was a trophy until we were a part of the game. I had no idea. And it was just like, when we won it, so obviously we lost my freshman year, then we won it my sophomore year. And it was just like, oh, wait, there's a trophy with this. Okay, cool. But yeah, I think it's a Legends Trophy. But then, of course, then you follow that up to get your first conference win of the year. So, yeah, again, it's one of those things where they're both big ones for different reasons.
Yeah, I think, honestly, the thing that I took away from the Arizona State game, was just despite the, I want to say, offensive struggle, they found a way to win. I think a couple weeks ago, I think this Stanford team loses that game. They find they actively find ways to lose games. It felt like in that 4-game losing streak, like the Oregon State game, obviously having the Palo Alto predicament or whatever you want to call it, where all of a sudden you're up by a touchdown and Oregon State has to drive the length of the field and they throw a simple, not simple, but it wasn't a special play or anything, just an out route, and he caught it by the sideline and 2 whiff tackles later, and he's running in the end zone. And so I was impressed with Stanford's ability to kind of keep their composure. I was also impressed with the young guys. We're seeing a lot of young guys, and I don't think it's by choice.
No, it's not.
It's because of injury. But Ernest Cooper, who apparently goes by RJ. I've not heard him yet to be called RJ, but I was also told he goes by RJ. Don't know if I believe that's true, but Ernest Cooper was honestly the star of the game for me. He dominated across the defensive line. I don't know how he didn't have a role earlier in the season. I think he had 2.5 tackles for a loss, a sack, 5 total tackles, and you're telling me there wasn't a role for him earlier in the season? Like, that's crazy to me. But I do think that maybe the future with him and David Bailey will be interesting, or maybe David Bailey can move to like a linebacker spot and keep Ernest at the edge, because David Bailey's a little on the smaller side for edge rusher. But I also, one of my other key observations was that Joshua Carty is the best kicker in the country. Dude's absolutely,
hey, that's Playboy Carty.
yeah, dude's absolutely nails. We actually have our first question.
We do, and it's Tyler. So
yeah,
we both know Tyler.
Yeah, we'll say. You want to dive into this question right now?
Let's do it. It's Tyler. Like, we have to. Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. So Tyler, who we both adore, our favorite producer at the Pac-12 Network, has asked, "What will it take for Stanford to get to a bowl game?" That is a great question. They currently are sitting at 3 wins with 5 games remaining. They need to hit that 6 threshold. It will take. Luckily, their schedule, because it goes UCLA this week, which that will be a tough one. I don't think they match up well against UCLA. If we're being frank, UCLA kind of has everything that they struggle with, and then they get to play Washington State, who's kind of been on the down end. Utah will be a tough game. Cal, big rivalry game, and then BYU, who has been fraudulent. So they need to win 3 out of those 5 games, and I honestly think they need a better passing attack, because I was just about to touch on it when I talked about the Arizona State game, but they lost Casey Filkins, their starting running back, who was actually the backup for EJ Smith. And so they're down to their 3rd and 4th string running backs. And after that, it's just walk-ons and a safety who got moved from safety to running back. They're at the point where coach is asking, okay, raise your hand if you've played running back before. And so they need probably the 5-game stretch of Tanner McKee's best football that he's played of his life. And they need the defense to continue to play as strong as they have been. What do you think, Jordan?
Well, no, I mean, I agree completely. When you look at the schedule, I think and the big thing that pops out to me, the phrase is physicality. And here's the reason why I say that. I look at the schedule, and like you talked about, there are 2 teams on there I think that can be more physical to that point than Stanford, at least how it's currently constructed. UCLA is going to be one, and we'll see how that goes tomorrow. And then, of course, who I've been saying for a while has been the most physical program for the last, I'd say, 4 years in the Pac-12, Utah. That's going to be tough for Stanford. But when you look at the rest of it, okay, Washington State. Well, we just saw Washington State last night lose to a backup quarterback, and also like the 3rd and 4th string running backs of Utah, because their weapons were out. The Utes' weapons were out. We saw that happen, and even Clark Phillips got hurt. He wasn't even in there, and Utah found a way to make it work. You look at Cal. Obviously, when you go against Cal, there's one thing on your mind: you stop Jaden Knott, and like you said, it's a rivalry game. We have to get the axe back. All right, that's just that. We have to do it. And then last is BYU, and I don't know how their injury situation is going to look by the end of the year, but I think they've given up over 500 yards. Talking about BYU in the last 3, their last 3 games. If you look back to 2017, so I think it's a 62 game stretch. I think it was. They had only done that like 5 times since 2017 up until those last 3 games. Yeah. So there is a lot of room to make this happen. And of course, you're going to have to find a way to get now, like, thankfully, you don't have to find a way to get an upset because you won those last 2 games. So that's how you're going to do it. I think those 3 games that we're talking about that are very winnable, that's the strategy. That's what you have to do. And it's open and it's there. So I think that's how it can happen.
Yeah, I think it's definitely in play for them. I actually wrote an article the other day for Fan Nation, and there was actually another site that projected Stanford to make a bowl game. So the potential is obviously, people are seeing it. I had gone.
Las Vegas Bowl?
It was the Frisco Bowl. They had them matched up against Kansas.
I was gonna say this. Oh, all right. Well, I was gonna say if it's the Las Vegas Bowl, I'll go.
You're not looking to go to Frisco?
Nah, not really.
Wow. That's for the people of Frisco, Texas. If that's even a place, I don't even know. I feel like that's a place, right? Frisco.
That's where I think that's where like the Cowboys headquarters are, and that
Okay.
they have their place. I think.
I think that sounds right. I've never really been to Frisco. I've never really heard of it, but hey,
Well, look, I've been to El Paso. All right, I had to play a bowl game in El Paso, so
you got to play a bowl game in El Paso.
I deserve to go to Vegas for a bowl game. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think realistically a bowl game is in sight for Stanford. I think they have
there.
They have the map is set out. The steps are set out for them. They just have to. I mean, if they steal one from UCLA or Utah too, that would make it a whole lot easier. Because I think mentally, both of us are just chalking those games up as losses, unless you're calling for an upset somewhere. But I feel like
not this week. I know that.
It makes it a lot easier if they can win one of those games. Just because I feel like there's a lot of pressure on we have to win 3 straight because Stanford has this is the first time in I want to say since last year. I don't even know if they did it last year that Stanford won 2 straight. Like it might be a couple seasons you have to go back before you find Stanford winning 2 straight. I don't remember. Did they play USC and Oregon back to back last year? I don't remember.
I don't think they did because I think USC was like week 2 or week 3, and then they played Oregon towards the middle of the year. So I don't think so.
Okay, so you have to go back a little bit before you could find a winning streak, and so you don't want to be in this situation where it's like if we don't win this, like every game is obviously must win, but I feel like that's a lot of pressure to have on yourselves to be like if we don't win one of these games, then our season's over.
Well, and they shouldn't have that. They really shouldn't. It really should be just a week. Like I would say this, if even going into the year, right? Going into the season. So obviously, as you know, Kevin and Tyler, if you're still watching and whoever else is watching, if you talked to me about Stanford, you knew going into this season, I had a lot of high hopes for Stanford. Not in terms of like Pac-12 championship hopes, but they were going to be a pretty good team based off what the talent was coming back, secondary, all those things. And so, yeah, it's been pretty disappointing in that standpoint. But even going into the year, if they were thinking, hey, we need to play perfect this week or play perfect this week, because if we don't, then all of a sudden that's out the window. It was never going to be a successful season. It just wasn't going to work out. And so, the thing that we always would talk about, when Coach Turley was there, and I'm sure, Coach Carroll, who's the strength and conditioning coach there now, it was always about focus on the task at hand. And the only task at hand right now is you've got UCLA this week. You've got to go against a very good dual threat quarterback. I know, Kevin, you've got your opinions on DTR, but like, let's be real.
I'm a DTR believer.
He's matured to
I owe him an apology. I do.
Yes.
He is playing his best football of his life. As a thrower too, which is the big step for him.
Yeah. So you're playing a very good dual threat quarterback. You're playing I'd say a top 5 running back in the country. Oh yeah, you're also going against one of the best pass rushers in the country too. That needs to be your focus, not what happens if this game doesn't go how we want. And no.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I feel like we're looking ahead, but we're supposed to look ahead.
We can afford to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't affect us.
Right.
But for them, they need to focus on the task at hand. It will be a little more difficult. They lost Casey Filkins I'm expecting the year.
That's what it sounds like.
David Shaw said not this week and possibly the year. And last time he said that, it was about Michael Wilson, who is out for the year. So, and EJ Smith, who is also out for the year. So is that like his thing? Does he just like try to like hide it, or is this just like a new thing that he started to do this year?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure in that regard. The thing for Stanford is they never disclose injuries.
Right. We don't know what a single injury is, except for Filkins. We know it's his arm because we saw it.
Well, we saw it for him. We saw it for EJ. I think we saw it for Michael Wilson too. But no, like you're right. For the most part with Stanford, it's unless you see it, you don't know.
They go with those like hockey injury reports where it's like lower body
injury. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there was the thing that I took away from the Arizona State game, just to come full circle, was we need a better performance from the offense. They would move the ball extremely well, get past the 30 or the 40, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if the playbook was struggling or if the offense just couldn't run what was called. There was a few misplays, a couple Elijah Higgins touchdown got called back because of a penalty, but the offense is probably going to be throwing the ball north of 50 times if we're being honest. Tanner Key threw, I think, 57 against Arizona State. You need a better performance from him. Every time he throws over 30 passes, I believe it is, his completion percentage has dropped. He's done it 5 times this season, thrown over 30 times, and his completion percentage has dropped below 63 of those times. And he's thrown interceptions he's thrown 3 interceptions, excuse me. So there's going to be a lot of Tanner McKee passing. You could tell that David Shaw doesn't really have faith, or I don't want to say have faith, but he doesn't really believe or want to count on these backup running backs. They have 24 carries combined. EJ Smith still has more carries than both of them combined, and he hasn't played in 6 weeks. So a lot of passing. They need the offense to hit on something. I don't know what needs to change for the offense, but something needs to hit. Defensively, just keep it up. I mean, their defense is, the pass rush has been a lot better. Stephen Herron and Ernest Cooper, who I mentioned earlier, have both been tearing it up. But you can't, they're more of a bend, don't break defense. And then when they get, plays in the backfield, it's like, oh, that's a pleasant surprise. But we'll talk about the keys to UCLA later. But they need this defense to keep up the momentum. They've given up 28 points combined in the past 2 games, which is insane because you go back 2 weeks ago against Oregon State or even Washington, who I believe 40-balled them, and Oregon, they were giving up a lot of points. And so I think if this defense could keep it up, I didn't expect the defense to be the strong suit of this team. I can tell you that.
I mean, it's difficult, and obviously I'm speaking on a bias because I was, a defensive guy at Stanford. But the thing for me is, no, there is a lot of room for them to be better. It should be at a point now where, again, we're past the midpoint of the season, and okay, I get it. They're not the biggest D-line, but in those pass rush situations, this is why you switch to that 4-3. Find a way to keep applying pressure. And they've done a good job of it the last couple of weeks, as you mentioned. But also, as you talked about, the last 2 offenses they've played are Notre Dame and Arizona State. Not the 2 big banner offenses that you could think of. You're about to play one this week, though.
Yeah.
You're about to play one. And there's still been some mental lapses. Let's be honest about this, okay? If Emory Jones was a little more accurate, Stanford loses that game.
Yep.
Because he had a guy, he was wide open for whatever reason. Again, I don't know why the corner sat down early on that route, but he did. And so there's all this room to throw that ball. And it was, first off, it was a heck of a catch. Even though it was out of bounds, it was a heck of a catch.
Yeah, it was. This was the catch that would have honestly won them the game.
It would have won them the game.
Yeah.
And it should have. And it's not like, okay, cool, good job, we won. It's like, no, there's something we need to work on, because me knowing Chip Kelly, because we had to go against him, he's going to see how Stanford played that, or why they played that, whether there was an underneath route that was coming to the outside that made the corner sit, whatever the reason was. He's going to see that. And best believe you're going to see something similar like that again tomorrow. And if you sit on it with DTR instead of Emory Jones, it'll be a touchdown.
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, we got the full Emory Jones experience. There was times where he looked really good.
Oh, he had a time for a touchdown earlier in that game.
He did. And then there was times where he would overthrow a wide open person or take a sack that if he would have just taken off and ran, he would have been fine. So that's the full Emory Jones experience. This guy, Emory Jones, is a solid player.
Sure, absolutely.
Florida fans used to want him to start over Kyle Trask and Anthony Richardson, who are both probably going to be NFL. Well, Kyle Trask is an NFL quarterback in some capacity, and Anthony Richardson is a future NFL quarterback. And so there's no doubting that Emory Jones has some skill, but I think Stanford made him look a lot better than what he was. And honestly, I'm getting a little concerned about Caillou Blue Kelly. If we're being frank, he takes a lot of chances, And this season, it doesn't feel like these chances are paying off. I think he's getting caught looking in the backfield, or if he's getting caught looking somewhere else. I don't know what's happening, but there's been I think he's good for at least one or two big plays a game given up, if we're being
So
honest.
was that him on that side? I think, was he the corner on that play?
I think he was the corner on the touchdown pass too.
Okay, and so I guess the thing was, going back to last year, here's the unfortunate part. Going back to last year, watch his performance against Drake London.
I know.
He was phenomenal. And that was kind of that moment of, hey, rest of the country, you need to pay attention to this guy. And, even going into this year, it was, well, if you're someone that is, a draft expert, yada, yada, and you want to circle a matchup, right, of like, hey, I want to see how this person does against this person. It was going to be him against Jordan Addison. And again, now Jordan Addison and Caleb Williams, they're really good. I'm not saying that all of a sudden Caillou Blue Kelly is not good because they got him on a deep ball, because that's not the case.
And the scrum.
But yes, but like to your point, it's when certain things start to pop up over and over. Because again, NFL scouts are going to see that play too. It's like, wait, why did you sit down on that? It's only X amount of time left. Like you got to play top down. Yeah, that's what our D coordinator, Derek Mason, who's now at Oklahoma State, that's what he would always preach the secondaries, play top down. I know Coach Akina, who is the secondary coach at Stanford, like I'm sure he wasn't happy with it either. But, the thing is for me is I know that Caillou is a really good player, and I'm still banking on the fact and the optimism he's going to bounce back. And like, we're going to see that Caillou Blue Kelly, that not only that we think he is, but also he thinks he is. Like I'm still optimistic about that. And again, there are some really good offenses still coming up where he's going to have a chance to prove that.
Yeah, I think for him also, it could just be him trying to force the issue. He doesn't have an interception yet. And I think maybe, and this is just me speculating, I obviously don't know what's going on inside of his head, but maybe he's trying a little too hard to be like, I'm going to lock this person down. Or like you could force the issue so much that it kind of hinders you. And so maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. I just feel like I'm not used to seeing Caillou Blue Kelly get beat. Like I'm honestly, this season I've gotten used to him getting beat deep once a game. Like it's just, it happens.
And no, you bring up a good point, because I'll put it this way. Like, let's go to the NFL for a second. There was a trade that just happened this week, right? The Chicago Bears traded Robert Quinn. I think he's the second or the third. I can't remember, but my apologies to Robert Quinn and his family. But he just got traded to the Eagles, right? Now, you look at what Robert Quinn's production was these last few years. I think last year he had 18 and a half sacks for Chicago.
Right.
This year, he only has one up to this point. Right. So now I'm sure people are just like, well, what's different? Well, first off, Akeem Hicks, who was the best inside pass rusher for the Bears, he's no longer there. Yeah. So now, if you're the best pass rusher or the only pass rusher in certain offensive, line coaches, offensive coordinators' minds, guess what? You're going to see a lot of slides your way, a lot of double teams, things like that. So, yeah, you're not going to have that same production, And so the thing is, even as a corner, so I think sometimes we look at corners, it's like, oh, this corner doesn't have as many picks. Well, yeah, sometimes the reason why they don't, they're not getting the ball thrown their way that much. That's a good thing. That's true. Like that means that either you're doing your job or people expect you to do your job. Right. So they don't even want to try to do that.
That's a good point. And I think teams are testing him only because the safety help. I'm not like in the play. I'm not in the defensive back room, so I don't know what the coaches are telling the safeties are their job on specific plays. But I'm not a fan of the safety help this year. It's more of a safety don't help, if you will. Because, we saw against Oregon State, that was a corner, I don't remember who, and a safety. They both whiffed. Against Washington, the receivers were running wild. Against Oregon, the safeties. I think that I don't know what the weak point of this defense is, because I feel like I want to say it's the secondary up to this point. I think the front seven has kind of figured it out. And I think they're putting a lot of teams, especially now in the modern offensive day of football, they're figuring out how to get each of these guys to go do a job that they have to do. So like if a corner, if they're playing zone or a safety's playing zone and they see someone go to a certain direction or a certain route, like they have to go to a certain area. And I think teams are exploiting this really well against the Stanford secondary, because I feel like, I don't want to say these guys are out of position, but I think they're out of position for where, like, how to stop that receiver. But they're in position for what they need to do, what their job is. It's just these offenses nowadays just know exactly how to place people where they should be doing their job, but where they shouldn't be in terms of stopping whatever that play is.
I mean, it's tricky. I mean, and like you said, to an extent, right? Like it kind of depends on the week. Like, what is the team you're about to go against? What do they want to do? Well, we know what this team wants to do coming up. They want to run. Like everything is based off the run,
right?
And if you have an undersized front, which again Stanford does, that's the mismatch. So now it's up to the powers that be. You got to find certain run stunts to make up for that size disadvantage. And again, it can be done. Like it's tough. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say like, oh no, it's this easy. Like no, it's not. But and obviously we'll get into it later when we talk about the picks. But that's the mismatch this week, obviously.
Right, and like you said, we'll get into that when we talk about our picks, which we're doing right now.
Here we go.
We got our Week 9 pick'em. I did update the records, and Jordan, yours truly had a perfect week last week, which has given me a 1-point lead.
Oh,
I know. I came back. So I know it's because you know what game you didn't pick?
Yeah, I know. But you know what? Hey, it's worked. 2 weeks in a row, I've just doubted them, and they've won. So I'm gonna keep it up.
Right. You gotta just. I mean, maybe it's like you're the anti-curse or something.
That's what I'm saying. Like I gotta keep it up.
Week 10 pick them, not week 9. Old graphic there. That's my bad. We got. Oh wait, no, it is week 9. What am I talking?
Yes, week 9.
I played myself. Anyway, we have. It's because I know. It's because I looked at the Utah-Washington State game that happened last night. Really weird game. I knew it was fishy when I saw the line. Apparently Cam Rising, and I quote, did not play because he wasn't feeling it.
Look, all I know is
whatever that means.
During week games, crazy things happen on the Palouse. Like we almost suffered that also in that 2016 year. We should have lost up there, if I'm being fully honest. And thankfully their kicker, so it's funny, they ran the clock all the way down. We were losing the whole game. And a couple of Kevin Hogan runs late in that game got us the lead. And it was like the last drive, they're moving and they're in a position to kick a field goal for the win. They call timeout to stop the clock. Kicker's going back to the sideline. He's going to the fan. Like it's also like Halloween on the Palouse, so you can imagine it's just
spooky season.
It's crazy up there. I think it was a Friday night too. So kicker's pumping the crowd up. Blah blah blah. Goes out there, he misses the kick, and that's what won us the game. So crazy things happen up there during like a Thursday Friday night game. So that didn't surprise me. Like even. Obviously, I get it. Like, again, no Cam Rising, no Tavion Thomas, no Brant Keithy, and then I know Dalton Kincaid also got hurt during the game. But my whole thing is just saying, even if they were there, like just because of where you're playing and the time of day it is and also time of year, crazy things happen up there.
Also, I would like to give a negative shout out to the odds makers at B. They had the over-under of this game at 56.5. Not a chance.
They don't understand Pac-12 after dark.
Pac-12 after dark on a Thursday? Not a chance.
They don't understand that.
But so now we got to pick the games. There is 4 games left. Not counting do you want to pick the Utah-Washington State game? Who do you think won?
I'm gonna pick Utah.
Yeah. Okay. So our first game on the docket is Oregon taking on Cal. They're visiting Cal. Oregon is probably the hottest team in the country right now. I don't even feel like, regardless of conference, it's probably them and Tennessee are the 2 hottest teams in the country. Oregon hasn't lost since that embarrassing week 1 loss to Georgia, which I'll say it every week, every time it comes up. I think we all overreacted to that Georgia loss. And even Bo Nix said that. He said this in an article yesterday with 24/7 Sports, I think it was, that he thinks that Oregon could beat Georgia today, which obviously he has to say that. But I feel like there's actually some belief behind that. Like, I feel like there's some belief behind that. This Oregon team's hot right now. This Cal team, not so hot. They have lost 2 straight. They lost to Colorado. Yikes. that was Colorado's first win of the season. And then they lost to Washington.
The Marshawn Lynch game, because he was there.
Dude, what's up with these Pac-12 schools making their famous alum come to their games and losing in front of them? Oregon's done it to Marcus Mariota like 3 times. Hey, Stanford did win in front of Bryce Love, though. He was in attendance.
That's true.
This past week. So here's the thing, and I've said it countless times. I don't trust Cal, and there's a reason. Their whole offense hinders on how well Jay Knott does, which Jay Knott is a legend. He is a future star in the making, but they have lost 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. They're 1-4 when he doesn't rush for over 100 yards. And that one win was against UNLV. So, yeah. This Oregon defense is decent. I think this Oregon defense actually struggles with the run more so than the pass, if I'm not mistaken. But there's no way, not a chance, that they could keep up with this Oregon offense right now. I don't think anyone can. Bo Nix he's slinging the ball around the yard. He's running. Their running game is electric. So I'm going to go Oregon.
I'm picking Oregon too, but I will say this. I think this is actually going to be somewhat of a weird, close game.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, you just had if you're Oregon, you just had the big showdown. You just had UCLA. That was the top 10 game. College game day was there. You had Sabrina Ionescu leading everybody in shout, all of that.
Yeah. Great basketball player, bad singer.
Yeah.
I was like, what's she doing? Oh, she's singing.
Yeah, I was just like, she's doing shout. Okay, cool, I got you. And here's the thing: for the next 2 games, and this is human nature, right? I'm not saying this in terms of just Oregon itself. You have Cal this week, and then you have Colorado next week.
Right.
It would be human nature to let down a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, I just think that, who knows? I think Cal might even jump out early, right? They might get the first touchdown. They might get that first score, but then that'll be the wake-up call, and then Oregon takes over from there. But I think it's going to be a little weirdly close for that reason. Also, Bo Nix, I hate to disagree with you, but if you were to play Georgia again today, Georgia's still winning.
Maybe it's closer, though. Maybe they score a touchdown.
No, I mean, that's true. But, again, my thing was, even when they got blown out, I tried to tell people, look, don't take this for how bad you think Oregon might be.
Right.
Georgia is Georgia. They're building something there. Obviously, coming off a national championship, they lost so many of their defensive players and others to the NFL last year. But they are legit building an empire. And it's going to be one of those things where, for the most part, I expect to see nothing but Georgia versus Alabama in the SEC championship for years to come.
Right.
So, no, that wasn't an indictment. I never took it as an indictment on what Oregon is. And again, that was the first ever game that Dan Lanning was a head coach of, too.
Yeah.
So I never thought that was Oregon's going to be that bad. It was more so for me. It was like, no, Georgia's going to be that good.
Yeah, especially, I think you make a great point. Georgia's just a really top-notch program right now. My friend Sergio always says that there's 3 programs in college football that are playing semi-professional football, and that's Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia, and then everybody else is just trying to catch them on a good day. And so I feel like that point remains true. Also, I fully expect when the playoff 2 expands, when I think it's to 12, I think was what the number was.
I think so. Yeah.
I fully expect Georgia to be one of the 12, probably every year. Whether they're at the top or the bottom, they will be in that top 12. But enough about Georgia. Let's keep going with our picks. So we both got Oregon over Cal, which Oregon's favored by 17. So The odds makers they're feeling spicy. You know what else is like a weird factor that nobody considers? It's fall on the West Coast.
Yep.
It's starting to get a little chilly. Hands are starting to get a little cold, wind, rain, possibly. So that could also be a factor in some of these games. I feel like the worst game outside of like -10 degree snow, that'd be a very, very bad environment. But the games that I feel like people play the worst are cloudy, 55 degrees or 55 to 60 degrees, always mayhem. I have no data behind it. I got that feeling inside me that that's a rough game because I feel like that's when things go wrong. I don't know. Especially their game's a morning game, kind of 12:30.
Yeah, 12:30 is like that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be like you said, the line 17 is gonna be. I really do think it's gonna be closer than that. I really do.
Yeah. This next game, also a very far line. USC traveling to Tucson to play the Wildcats. Number 10 USC. Honestly, I wrote about this today because I do 4 best bets of college football. I think this game will hit the over-under because both of these teams can score. The over-under is currently at 75 if you're a gambling enthusiast. But here's the thing. Arizona, they aren't there yet. Okay? I think with Jaden DeLora, Jacob Cowing, should they stay? I think Jaden will stay. I don't know about Jacob, but
he should go.
Yeah, he should. I mean, selfishly, you would want him to stay if you're an Arizona fan, but he will probably get some NFL draft buzz.
He's going to be a mid-round pick.
Yeah, he's lightning quick, can play. You can move him all over. You can hand the ball off to him.
He is the perfect slot receiver guy for today's NFL. He's the perfect guy.
Especially with Deebo Samuel, the Deebo Samuel role, kind of every team's looking for their Deebo Samuel. Obviously, he's not built like Deebo, but
even the Niners can't use Deebo. Well, that's a conversation for another.
That's a wow.
I can get into
it. But yeah, I think he's a great player. And but anyway, I think USC is going to win this game. I think depending on the status of Jordan Addison, Eric Gentry, the linebacker. Jordan Addison's a receiver. Eric Gentry's the linebacker. They are both game time decisions. The last I saw, and so I think even without them, USC will win. I just think their presence will determine how big of a margin they win by. But Arizona. They're improved from last year, but they're just not. I don't see them as a team that could upset someone yet.
I think they can. But it's not going to be this week. And the main reason why I say that is because one thing we all know, there's that 1 or 2 Jaden DeLora plays where he tries to expand it and extend the play. And he makes that throw that he's not supposed to make. And what is the one thing we do know about this USC defense? They feast on turnovers.
Most in the country, I believe.
They feast on them.
They feast on them because
yes.
You don't want to give this off the USC offense. I promise you, to those out there, they do not need extra help. They don't need handouts. They don't need coupons. They don't need whatever it may be. Like, they will score on you regardless of where they are on the field. And you giving them the ball more than like they're expected to have the ball will not work out well. Excuse me, in your favor. But yeah, I'm going USC. You're going USC.
Yep.
From what it sounds like, upset. Did I hear upset, Jordan?
No, I said I think Arizona can upset someone. I'm saying it's not going to be this week.
Okay, fair enough. This next one, a battle of the bottom. Arizona State and Colorado. Here's the thing. Arizona State looked really good last week at times. I honestly think the thing that hurt them was Stanford was able to slow down their running attack because their rushing attack is kind of what their bread and butter, and that's what helps their passing attack. Stanford held them to 128 yards total rushing, and they were averaging 3.8 yards a carry. I think if they could get the run going against Colorado, they should win. I'm going to go ASU. Yeah, I don't have faith in Colorado. I don't want to pick them, and then they disappoint me. I just don't want to do that.
I'll put it this way for a couple of reasons. One, so shout out to Mike Sanford because he was an assistant coach when I was first at Stanford. Like I still remember I think his Twitter handle was like literally at Stanford. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Good one. That's a good one.
No, it's a really good one. Now last week, and I'm not trying to say all of a sudden like that was an anomaly game, but they played a really good Oregon State team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if whoever does know or doesn't know about Oregon State, they're a good football team.
6-2 right now.
There were a lot of turnovers that happened, and some unfortunate plays this way or that way that happened for Colorado in that game. But now they're going back home, and even when they beat Cal at home, did you see how that crowd was?
They stormed the field. They were rowdy.
But like even before they stormed the field, like in terms of how full Folsom Field was,
it was full attendance, I believe.
Yeah, it was basically a full attendance. I think that's going to be a big part. So you know what? I'm going to go with Coach Stanford. I'm going with Ralphie. I'm going with the Buffs. Give me the Buffs.
Are you Jordan Watkins running with Ralphie?
Ralphie's too fast for me. I can't run with Ralphie. I need a whole day before stretching, foam rolling, and a whole day after in the cold tub. I can't run with Ralphie.
I would like to race Ralphie. I don't know. I
have a better chance beating the freeze at a Braves game than I do trying to run with Ralphie.
Wow. See, there's just something about like competing with animals that always grabs my attention. Like I'm not someone who thinks I could take a grizzly bear one-on-one, but maybe you give me a head start against Ralphie and I pick up some steam. I don't know. We'll see.
You in a wrestling match versus a gorilla. Do you want to try that? See who wins?
I don't want a piece of any animal that has opposable thumbs. And that is going to snap me in half.
Right.
I just don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. Oh, what is this? We have
a spam in our comments.
I was like, another question? Nope. Okay. That's interesting.
Dang, Tyler got blocked on accident.
Oh, sorry, Tyler. At least he asked his question beforehand.
He did.
But yeah, so now it's time to preview our game of the week, because it is the game that we care about. First of all, we got to go picks. Yep. I hate to kill the vibe on Stanford's win streak, but I think UCLA wins. UCLA is in a weird, not really weird predicament. They're in a win or go home kind of predicament where the rest of their games on their schedule will basically determine whether or not they make it to the Pac-12 championship. Because like I said, there is currently, it's a 4-team race at the moment, but there's 6 teams that have realistic chances of making it to the Pac-12 championship. And so all the other teams need UCLA to lose because that would give someone like Oregon the advantage over them, even though Oregon's solely in first place right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Oregon State and Washington, who are both at 3-2. And so there's a lot of teams vying for 2 spots. But I'm going to pick UCLA to win. Here's the thing. I think Stanford has been really good against the run game over the past few weeks. I believe, let's see, they are 3-0 when they hold opposing teams to 160 yards rushing, and they are 0-4 when teams amass over that margin. The issue with that, when you look at this week, is, let me pull it up real quick. UCLA averages 200 yards rushing, which is not friendly. And here, the main reason they do that is, one, you mentioned it already, Zach Charbonnet. I would say he's probably the best running back in the Pac-12. I don't know if he's the best in the country. He's probably top 5 at worst. Top 3 is probably where I'd put him.
He's up there for sure.
Also, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he could scoot with the best of them. He's probably faster than most teams' receivers and running backs anyway. Mm-hmm. And he's got an absolute cannon for an arm. Mm-hmm. And he's deadly accurate. I was looking at his stats this season just because I wanted to give props to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Last season, he was, I won't say a liability, but he had that Jaden Delora moment where he would make throws that weren't necessary. His worst game this season came in the win over South Alabama. He went 20 of 30 for 263, completing 66% of his passes for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. That's his worst statistical passing game of the season, which is insane. He's completing 74% of his passes this year. And so really for Stanford to win, they need to limit the run game, which is hard because obviously he could throw and run. And Zach Charbonnet is not easy to bring down by any means. And Stanford needs to match UCLA scoring. UCLA is a high scoring team, and Stanford needs to match that. And I don't know if they could keep up with that, especially when it comes to Tanner McKee having to throw the ball 60 times a game. Because, like I said, the more he throws, and I don't think it's on him. Like, some of the throws are on him. He makes some. I don't think Tanner McKee has the ability to put touch on throws, but that's just like something I've noticed consistently. Is I think he's really good when he's able to throw it really hard and he's able to throw it to a window that he sees. I don't really think he likes to anticipate throws, and I don't think he can kind of drop one in there. He could throw it really hard and give you a jump ball, but he can't drop one over defenders. And I don't know. I just don't have a lot of confidence that he could throw 60 passes, because I think realistically, if Stanford wins, he needs to go like 48 of 60 with no picks. And like they need some huge plays. And we haven't seen that from this offense like all year, except for the Oregon State game, and they lost that game. So they need a huge game from Tanner McKee. They need someone to step up a running back too. I think that would take a lot of pressure off of Tanner. And then defense, they need to stop the run. What do you think, Jordan?
Here's a big thing for me. Because
your pick.
Well, like I said, I'm keeping it consistent. I've picked against Stanford the last 2 weeks. They've won the last 2 weeks, so I'm picking against Stanford.
The anti-jinx is hopefully in effect.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'm gonna say this. The biggest running back that can step up for Stanford this week is the offensive line. Make it easier for these younger, inexperienced running backs to have success. You have to find a way to make these holes open up for them, because I think, honestly, the key for this game for Stanford is the opposite. You don't have to go point for point with UCLA. Okay. You need to do whatever you can to keep UCLA's offense off the field as long as possible.
Oh, I mean, possession dominance.
It's possession dominance. I mean, like you say, you talk about DTR. He's second in the country coming into this weekend in passing completion percentage. And I think it's one of those things where, honestly, because Chip Kelly and that offensive side, they know Stanford is a little undersized up front. So they might even expect Stanford to pack the box a little more. You might see a little bit of old Chip Kelly this weekend, where, some of those quick throws out to the receivers, that might be an extension of the run game. Like play that numbers game. That might be the case. So the big thing for Stanford is, if you're on offense, do whatever you can while also still scoring points. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like just hold the ball forever and not score, but do whatever you can to run the ball, kill that clock, and limit the amount of possessions that DTR and that offense has. That will be the key for Stanford.
Yeah, honestly, I like the non-shot clock rule. I don't know if you've seen those high school basketball games where it's like a team scores like 5 points and then they just like pass the ball around.
And that's how they upset like this really good team.
Yeah. But no, I think that's a great point. I really think, honestly, which this is crazy, and I think we need to touch on it. I think David Shaw's reluctance to use young guys has come back to bite him. Obviously, he had to use Ernest, and he's had to use David Bailey. But this would have been a prime time for Arlen Harris Jr. to maybe get a few touches, get a few looks. I don't know, but he's in the transfer portal, or he will be in the transfer portal at December 5th, I think, is the official date that underclassmen can enter. But yeah, this would have been a prime time to have him, because right now you're relying on two unproven running backs. After that, it goes walk on and then converted safety, or converted running back from safety. And so,
and again, you're not wrong with that. But again, I guess going back to what I said, remember I was talking earlier about my optimism for this team,
right,
going into the year. Well, the big part of the optimism was because you had so many experienced players coming back.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to use some of those younger guys.
That's true.
So, but of course, certain circumstances, that's how it comes up, and that's where it is.
Yeah, I think this is also kind of where David Shaw shows I don't think he's that old as a person, but his age as a football mind. He likes the bell cow running back. When EJ Smith was healthy, EJ was getting all of the carries, and then Casey would get a few. And then obviously when EJ went down, Casey would get like literally all the carries. Like I think he had over how many carries did he have against Notre Dame?
Well,
Like,
I mean, look along the tenure, right? I mean, at first for me it was Stephon Taylor. Then after him it was Tyler Gaffney. Then after Tyler, we had that 1 year where it was kind of a mix, but Ramon Wright kind of led the way. Then it was Christian McCaffrey, and then it was Bryce Love, and then Cam Scarlett, and then now kind of we are where we are.
Yeah. But like Casey Folkins went 20, 19, 21, 32, and then 8 this past game before he went down. And so I think
on a late hit too. I think that's the thing that makes me the most upset about why he got hurt is not even the fact that he got hurt. It was on a late hit.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the
part about it.
I think that shows Stanford's luck, if you believe in luck. That kind of their juju this past few years really with injuries just hasn't been going their way. But yeah, I think
Stanford used to believe in luck.
I mean, he's still on campus. He has an extra year of eligibility. I don't know. Hey, let him call the plays. I don't know.
Also,
yes.
Before I forget, I want to make one bonus pick for this week.
Bonus pick
because it's a big week. The fate, at least for currently, of the NFC South is on the line this week. 3-4 Atlanta Falcons versus the 2-5 Carolina Panthers.
Give it to me.
Whoever wins this game,
yes,
is in sole possession of the NFC South.
Oh, hey, PJ Walker's hitting his stride. I'm just saying, he's looking like that.
He is, and I'm happy for him. I love to see it for him. But give me the Falcons.
Love it. Love it.
Come on, Marcus.
We'll add that to our honorary picks of.
No, yeah, that's counting on my record. Come on, Marcus. I believe in you. I believe. No, I don't. But yes, I do.
If they win, though, you'll get a half point. How about that?
I'll take it.
Yeah. But back to the UCLA game. I really just because Jordan's out here picking his Falcons, which we all knew was coming.
It's a big game. I had to.
I mean, I can't fault you. I thought you were going to go Georgia over Florida or something.
I mean, that's a given. That's a given. I'm going to
I figured. I don't know. But yeah, I think this game for Stanford is honestly, this is like the worst time to play a really good team for them. Like if you could have flipped like Washington State this week, I feel like that would have been huge going into the UCLA game. Like if they had 3 wins, but hey, we've seen Dorian Thompson-Robinson make some mistakes. Not this year, really, but he's done it in the past. If you could contain the run and frazzle this UCLA offense, things could go your way. Also, if you could capitalize on drives, the craziest Stanford probably has to have one of the worst red zone offenses. I need to look up the stats, but I know off the top of my head, they're probably one of the 25 worst red zone offenses in the country in terms of getting into the red zone and scoring. They get to the red zone.
Scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
They get to the red zone and don't score. And that's honestly been their issue all season. Look at the USC game. They could have matched.
You remember what Kirk Herbstreit said on the telecast during that game?
What did he say? I didn't hear him.
You were there. So It was after, I think, the second turnover or second stop USC had in the red zone. Kirk Herbstreit even said it was like, it's almost like there's 2 different offenses. There's the Stanford team that gets before the 20, and then there's a Stanford offense after they get inside the 20.
Yeah,
he said that during the game.
That's a fair assessment because honestly, they could have been leading that game at halftime. Even Washington, which that was a fluke interception. Where Casey Filkins was falling and the ball like rolled off his body into the hands of a Washington defensive back. But yeah, if they could finish these drives, the offense is really good at getting into the red zone. They need to finish. But yeah, this has been the Farm Talk podcast brought to you by yours truly, Kevin Borba and Jordan Watkins. You can find this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever. We will be back next Friday talking all things Stanford, all things Pac-12. We thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
Basketball season starting soon.
Basketball season. Stanford, 5th in the poll. They did, for some reason, get a first-place vote. Jordan, was it you?
That was not me. But I will say this. I will be on the call next Wednesday, exhibition game for Stanford Women's. They're going against Vanguard, so catch that out on GoStanford.com.
There we go. Jordan is my favorite broadcaster for all things Stanford. He calls a great game, and that honestly, I expect them to win by 75. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy your college football.
See y'all.